The crystal chandelier cast bright light across the white tablecloth as Camille Johnson balanced 3 plates on her arm. Her burgundy uniform dress was pressed and clean, her name tag polished. She had served hundreds of tables in the past 6 months, always with a smile, always with grace. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Theodore Lancaster sat at table 7, his navy suit perfectly tailored, his silver watch catching the light. 3 business associates surrounded him, all laughing at something he had just said. When Camille approached to take their order, Theodore looked up at her with cold gray eyes. "Guten Abend," he said, his German smooth and practiced. "We get erster einfachen Kellnerin Hut?" His companions chuckled. Camille's hand tightened on her notepad, but her smile never wavered. She didn't respond, simply pulled out her pen. "Was Mochten Sie bestellen?" Theodore continued, speaking only in German now. "Oder ist das zu kompliziert für jemanden wie Sie?" His tone dripped with condescension. The words meant, "Or is that too complicated for someone like you?" One of his associates, a shorter man with thinning hair, joined in. "Sie versteht uns nicht, Theodore. Verschwenden Zeit nicht. She doesn't understand us. Don't waste your time." Theodore leaned back in his chair, studying Camille like she was an insect under glass. "Nederlich nicht. Schauen Sie sich es an. Wahrscheinlich hat es nach ein Buch gelesen." "Of course not. Look at her. She's probably never read a book." The laughter grew louder. Other diners turned to look. Camille felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned, over these 6 brutal months, how to swallow humiliation, how to smile when her heart was breaking, how to serve people who looked through her like she was invisible. "I'll give you a moment to decide," she said quietly in English, her voice steady. Theodore smirked. "We professional. Sie hat sogar einen vollständigen Satz gesagt." How professional. She even said a complete sentence. As Camille walked away, she heard them continuing their mockery in German. Every word landed like a stone in her chest. She went to the kitchen, set down her notepad, and took 3 deep breaths. Her hands trembled slightly. "You okay?" Bethany Torres asked, her green uniform matching Camille's burgundy one in style. Bethany was the closest thing to a friend Camille had at the restaurant. "I'm fine," Camille lied. But she wasn't fine. None of this was fine. 6 months ago, Camille Johnson had been someone completely different. She had been a PhD candidate at the Sorbonne in Paris, studying linguistics and European literature. She had spent her mornings in ancient libraries, her afternoons in seminars discussing philosophy and language theory. She had been fluent in 5 languages, writing her dissertation on the evolution of Romance languages in post-war Europe. She had been happy. Then the call came. Her mother had collapsed at work in Chicago. Diabetes complications, the doctor said. Needed constant care. Needed expensive medication. Needed her daughter. Camille had withdrawn from the program within a week. She'd flown home, her dissertation unfinished, her dreams packed away like the books she had to sell to pay for the plane ticket. There was no discussion, no hesitation. Her mother had raised her alone, working 2 jobs to send Camille to good schools. When Gloria Johnson needed help, Camille came home. But coming home meant starting over. Her savings evaporated within a month. Medical bills piled up faster than she could count them. She applied for jobs in her field, but everyone wanted someone with a completed degree. The only place that hired her immediately was the Sterling Oak, an upscale restaurant downtown. Mrs. Patterson, the owner, was a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. "You're overqualified," she had said, looking at Camille's resume. "But you need work and I need servers. The pay is decent, tips are good if you smile." "Can you smile?" Camille had smiled. She'd been smiling ever since, even when her feet ached, even when customers snapped their fingers at her, even when men like Theodore Lancaster spoke about her like she was worthless. Now, standing in the bright kitchen with its stainless steel counters and white tile walls, Camille closed her eyes and thought of her mother. Gloria was at home, probably watching television in her favorite blue chair, her medication lined up on the side table. The medication that cost $800 a month. The medication that kept her alive. "Table 7 is ready to order," Mrs. Patterson's voice cut through Camille's thoughts. The owner stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Is there a problem?" "No, ma'am," Camille said quickly. "I'll take their order now." She picked up her notepad and walked back into the dining room. The bright lights seemed harsher now, the murmur of conversation louder. Theodore Lancaster was still holding court at table 7, his companions hanging on his every word. When Camille approached, Theodore looked up with that same cold smile. SIE ist zurück. Bereit, unser Befehl entgegenzunehmen? She's back. Ready to take our orders? Yes, sir, Camille said, pen poised. What can I get for you? Theodore ordered the most expensive steak, making a show of pronouncing everything in an exaggerated way, as if she couldn't understand basic English. His companions followed suit, each order delivered with barely concealed amusement. When Camille finished writing and turned to leave, Theodore's voice stopped her. Warten Sie. Ich habe eine Frage. Wait, I have a question. She turned back. Yes. Verstehen Sie überhaupt, was ich sage? Do you even understand what I'm saying? His associates laughed again. One of them, a woman with short blonde hair and a red dress, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Camille met Theodore's eyes. For a moment, she considered responding in perfect German. She considered explaining that she had spent 3 years in Paris, that she had presented papers at conferences in Berlin and Vienna, that she probably knew his language better than he did. But she thought of her mother. She thought of the medical bills. She thought of the job she desperately needed. So she smiled and said, I'll put your orders in right away, sir. As she walked to the kitchen, she heard Theodore's voice drift after her. Hoffnungslos. Völlig hoffnungslos. Hopeless. Completely hopeless. The word followed her through the rest of her shift. It followed her as she served their meals, as she refilled their water glasses, as she brought them dessert. Theodore continued his performance, speaking German exclusively, making comments about her intelligence, her appearance, her worth as a human being. And Camille said nothing. She simply smiled and did her job because that was all she could do. When Theodore finally left, he dropped a $20 bill on the table. The meal had cost $300. $20 was an insult disguised as a tip, and they both knew it. Camille picked up the bill, folded it carefully, and put it in her apron pocket. $20 toward her mother's medication. $20 closer to keeping the lights on. As she cleared the table, she noticed Theodore had left his business card, probably by accident. She picked it up, reading the embossed letters. Theodore Lancaster, CEO, Lancaster Holdings. Of course he was a CEO. Of course he was rich and powerful and used to getting everything he wanted. People like Theodore Lancaster never faced consequences. They never had to choose between pride and survival. They never had to smile while being torn apart. Camille put the card in her pocket next to the $20 bill. Then she finished clearing the table, her movements mechanical, her mind somewhere far away. That night, she rode the bus home through streets illuminated by bright streetlights. The city looked clean and orderly from the window, all straight lines and glowing signs. Nothing like the chaos in her heart. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building in a neighborhood that was trying to be nice but hadn't quite made it yet. The stairs creaked under her feet. The hallway smelled like someone's cooking, something with garlic and onions. When she opened the door, her mother was waiting up. Gloria Johnson sat in her blue armchair, a blanket over her lap despite the warm evening. She was only 58 but looked older, her brown skin lined with worry, her black hair streaked with gray. How was work, baby? Gloria asked, her voice soft. Camille set down her purse and forced a smile. It was fine, Mama. How are you feeling? Don't change the subject. I can see it in your face. Something happened. Camille sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. The bright yellow cushions were worn but comfortable. Just a difficult customer. Nothing I can't handle. Gloria studied her daughter with knowing eyes. You're handling too much. You shouldn't have to handle any of this. If it wasn't for me. Mama, don't. Camille leaned forward, taking her mother's hand. We've been through this. You took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn. But your studies, your future, will still be there, Camille said, though she didn't quite believe it. Every day away from the Sorbonne felt like another door closing. Right now, you're what matters. Gloria squeezed her daughter's hand. You're too good, Camille. Too kind. The world doesn't always reward that, you know. I know, Camille whispered. But what else can I be? That night, lying in her small bed in the room next to her mother's, Camille stared at the ceiling. The streetlight outside cast bright patterns across the white paint. She thought about Theodore Lancaster and his cruel German words. She thought about her unfinished dissertation, still saved on her laptop, gathering digital dust. She thought about the life she had left behind and the life she was living now. Somewhere between the two was the person she used to be. Smart, accomplished, respected. That person felt like a ghost now, haunting the edges of her memory. But ghosts could return. Camille had to believe that. She had to believe that someday, somehow, things would get better. That kindness would be rewarded, that hope wasn't foolish, that love, in whatever form it took, would find a way. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she'd been praying for 6 months. Please, just let us make it through this. Please let there be something better waiting. The ceiling didn't answer. The streetlight kept casting its bright, indifferent glow. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse apartment she couldn't even imagine, Theodore Lancaster probably wasn't thinking about her at all. Have you ever had to hide who you really are just to survive? Have you ever been judged by someone who knew nothing about your story? Camille's journey is just beginning, and what happens next will change everything. Subscribe to see how this story unfolds and comment below. Would you have stayed silent like Camille, or would you have spoken up? The morning light came through the thin curtains, bright and unforgiving. Camille woke before her alarm, as she always did now. Her body had learned to run on 5 hours of sleep, though her mind protested with a dull ache behind her eyes. She got up quietly, not wanting to wake her mother. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that opened into a living room, 1 bathroom with tiles that had been white once but were now a dingy cream. The walls were pale blue, the furniture was secondhand, but everything was clean. Camille made sure of that. In the kitchen, she started coffee and took out her mother's medications. 7 different bottles, each with specific instructions. 2 with breakfast, 1 before breakfast, 3 with dinner, 1 at bedtime. Camille had them memorized, but she still checked the labels every morning. A mistake could be dangerous. Gloria shuffled in around 7, moving slowly. She wore a green bathrobe that Camille had bought her last Christmas, back when there was still money for gifts. "Morning, baby," Gloria said, easing herself into a kitchen chair. The yellow tablecloth was cheerful, at odds with the worry in her eyes. "Morning, Mama." Camille set down a plate of eggs and toast. "Eat these with your morning pills." "You're going to make me fat," Gloria said, but she picked up her fork. Camille poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from her mother. For a few minutes, they ate in comfortable silence. These quiet mornings were Camille's favorite part of the day, before the world and its demands crashed in. "You have the late shift today?" Gloria asked. "Yes, ma'am. 2 to 10. That man, the one who upset you yesterday, is he a regular?" Camille hesitated. She didn't want to lie, but she didn't want to worry her mother either. "He comes in sometimes. It's fine, Mama. I can handle it." Gloria set down her fork, her expression serious. "Camille, listen to me. I know you think you have to take care of me, and I'm grateful, baby. More grateful than I can say. But don't let people treat you poorly. Not for me. Not for anyone. I'm not letting them treat me poorly. I'm doing my job. There's a difference between doing your job and accepting disrespect." Gloria reached across the table, taking Camille's hand. "You are brilliant. You are educated. You are worth more than any of those people eating in that restaurant." Tears pricked at Camille's eyes, but she blinked them away. "I know, Mama, but knowing doesn't pay the bills." "No," Gloria said softly, "but it keeps your soul intact. Don't forget who you are because of where you work." After breakfast, Camille helped her mother to the living room and turned on the television. Then she retreated to her bedroom, closing the door quietly. Her laptop sat on a small desk by the window. She opened it, and there it was, her dissertation. "The Evolution of Romance Languages in Post-War Europe, a Linguistic Analysis of Cultural Identity and Transformation." 147 pages. 3 years of research. Incomplete. Camille scrolled through the document, reading passages she had written in Paris cafes, in the Sorbonne Library, in her tiny apartment near the Latin Quarter. The words felt like they belonged to someone else now. That Camille, the scholar who debated philosophy over wine and discussed syntax patterns with professors, seemed impossibly far away. She closed the laptop without adding anything. What was the point? Even if she finished it, who would read it? How would she defend it? She couldn't afford to go back to Paris, couldn't afford to leave her mother. The dream was over. She just hadn't accepted it yet. At 1:30, Camille changed into her burgundy uniform and took the bus downtown. The sterling oak occupied the ground floor of a tall building, all glass windows and polished brass handles. Inside, the decor was cream and gold, with those bright crystal chandeliers that turned every meal into a performance. Mrs. Patterson was at the hostess stand, reviewing the reservation book. She looked up when Camille entered. "Table 7 requested you specifically," Mrs. Patterson said, her tone neutral. Camille's stomach dropped. "Mr. Lancaster?" "Yes. He's reserved the table for 7 o'clock tonight." Mrs. Patterson studied Camille's face. "Is that going to be a problem?" Everything in Camille wanted to say yes, wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some dignity. but she thought of the medication bottles lined up in her kitchen. "No ma'am," she said. "No problem." Mrs. Patterson nodded. "Good. He's a valuable customer." She paused, then added more quietly, "But if he crosses a line, you tell me. Valuable doesn't mean he can do whatever he wants." It was the closest thing to kindness Mrs. Patterson had ever shown her. Camille appreciated it, even if she knew she wouldn't take the offer. She couldn't risk losing this job. The afternoon shift passed slowly. Camille served lunch to business people on break, families celebrating something, couples on dates. She smiled and took orders and brought food and cleared plates. The work was repetitive, but there was a rhythm to it that was almost soothing. Bethany worked the same shift. During a brief lull around 4, they stood together near the kitchen, folding napkins. "I heard Lancaster requested you," Bethany said. She wore her dark hair in a bun, and her brown eyes were sympathetic. "That guy's a jerk." "It's fine," Camille said automatically. "No, it's not. I saw how he treated you yesterday." Bethany lowered her voice. James wanted to spit in his food. Despite everything, Camille smiled. James Kim was the head cook, a stocky man with a dry sense of humor and zero patience for rude customers. "Tell James the first appreciate the thought, but please don't actually do it." "He won't. But the thought counts, right?" Bethany finished her napkin stack and looked at Camille seriously. "Why does he pick on you? Is it because?" She trailed off, but Camille understood the question. "Maybe. Or maybe he just enjoys being cruel. Some people do." "Well, I think you're better than this place. Better than any of us, actually. You should be doing something bigger." Camille's throat tightened. "Thank you, Bethany. That means a lot." At 6:45, Theodore Lancaster arrived. He wore a different suit today, charcoal gray with a blue tie, but the same cold expression. He was alone this time, which somehow felt worse. When cruelty had an audience, at least it made some twisted sense. But cruelty in private was just meanness for its own sake. Mrs. Patterson seated him at table 7. Camille took a deep breath, smoothed her burgundy dress and walked over. "Good evening, sir. Can I start you with something to drink?" Theodore looked up from his phone. "Guten Abend, Kellnerin. Ein Glas von Ihrem besten Rotwein." "Good evening, waitress. A glass of your best red wine." He was doing it again. Speaking only in German, testing her, mocking her. "I'll bring that right away," Camille said evenly. She brought the wine, a glass of expensive Cabernet that cost $30. Theodore swirled it, sniffed it, took a sip, all while watching her with those cold gray eyes. "Acceptable," he said. "Acceptable." Then, continuing in German, "Tell me, does it bother you? Being treated like you're invisible? Or are you simply too dim to notice?" Camille's hands clenched at her sides, but her face remained calm. "Are you ready to order, sir?" "Sie beantwortet keine Fragen. We fascinierend." She doesn't answer questions. How fascinating. He set down his wine glass. "Do you have any opinions at all? Or do you simply exist to serve?" Every word was designed to cut. Every sentence dripped with contempt. And Camille took it all, swallowed it down because she had no choice. "I'll give you a few more minutes to decide," she said, turning away. "Neen Warten C. Now wait, I'll have the ribeye, medium rare, and make sure it's done properly. I doubt you'd know the difference, but the cook might." Camille wrote down the order without responding. When she walked to the kitchen, her hands were shaking. James was at the stove, his white apron splattered with sauce. When he saw her face, his expression darkened. "That guy again? Please just make his steak perfect," Camille said. "I can't deal with him sending it back." James muttered something in Korean that sounded like a curse, but he nodded. The evening crawled forward. Theodore ate his meal slowly, calling Camille over repeatedly for trivial things. More wine. Water with no ice. Different silverware. Each request was delivered in German, each interaction designed to remind her of her place. At 9:30, the restaurant was nearly empty. Theodore was one of the last customers, nursing an after-dinner drink. Camille was counting the minutes until her shift ended. Then Theodore called her over again. "Come and see her. Come here." She approached the table. "Yes, sir?" He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Warm Mackenzie das? Why do you do this? Surely there are other jobs, other ways to waste your life." It was the first thing he'd said that sounded almost like a real question, even if it was still cruel. "We all do what we have to," Camille said quietly. "How philosophical," Theodore replied in English, surprising her. Then he switched back to German. "But philosophy doesn't pay bills, does it? Neither does pride." He stood, pulling out his wallet. He dropped 2 20s on the table. The meal had cost over $100. As he walked toward the door, he paused and looked back. Gleich Zeit morgen? Same time tomorrow? Camille didn't answer. Theodore smiled, satisfied, and left. She cleared his table, collected the money, and felt something inside her crack just a little bit more. On the bus ride home, Camille stared out the window at the bright city lights. She thought about Paris, about walking along the Seine on warm evenings, about discussing Voltaire and Proust with professors who treated her like an equal. That life felt like a story she'd read once, not something she'd actually lived. When she got home, her mother was already asleep in her blue chair, the television playing softly. Camille turned it off, helped Gloria to bed, and then sat alone in the dark living room. Her phone buzzed. A text from Bethany, "You okay? That guy's a monster." Camille typed back, "I'm fine. See you tomorrow." But she wasn't fine. She was disappearing piece by piece, day by day. The scholar was becoming a ghost. The woman who had once believed in herself was fading into someone who just survived. And Theodore Lancaster, with his perfect suits and cruel German words, was speeding up the process. Camille closed her eyes and made herself a promise. She would endure this. She would survive. For her mother, she would smile and serve and swallow her pride. Because love meant sacrifice. Because family came first. Because sometimes the only choice was to keep going. But in the quiet of her heart, where no one could hear, she screamed. 3 weeks passed, and Theodore Lancaster became a fixture at table 7. He came every Tuesday and Thursday evening, always requesting Camille's section, always speaking only in German. His cruelty had a rhythm now, predictable as a metronome. He would arrive at 7, order expensive wine, make comments in German about her intelligence or appearance or worth, eat his meal slowly, and leave an insulting tip. And Camille served him with the same calm grace she showed every customer, her true feelings buried so deep even she sometimes forgot they were there. It was a Thursday evening in late September when things began to shift, though Camille didn't realize it at first. The Sterling Oak was busy, every table full, the bright chandeliers casting their glow over well-dressed diners. Theodore arrived precisely at 7 as always. But this time, 3 business associates accompanied him. 2 men and a woman, all wearing expensive suits and carrying the same air of self-importance Theodore wore like cologne. Mrs. Patterson seated them at table 7. Camille took a breath and approached. "Good evening. Can I start you with drinks?" Theodore barely glanced at her. "Ja, Nederlich. Bring and see you in a sign flash von Ihrem besten Champagner." "Yes, of course. Bring us a bottle of your best champagne." One of the men, younger than Theodore with slicked back hair, looked confused. "Why are you speaking German?" "For entertainment," Theodore replied in English, then switched back to German. "Die Kellnerin verstet kein Wort. Beobachten Sie." The waitress doesn't understand a word. "Watch." He turned to Camille. "Wissen Sie, ich spreche über Sie, als wären Sie unsichtbar. While Sie für uns tatsächlich unsichtbar sind. You know, I'm speaking about you as if you're invisible. Because you actually are invisible to us." His companions shifted uncomfortably. The woman, red-haired with sharp features, said, "Theodore, maybe we should just order in English." "Nonsense. This is part of the experience." Theodore gestured at Camille dismissively. "Sie ist die gewohnt. Nicht wahr? She's used to it. Isn't that right?" Camille kept her expression neutral. "I'll bring the champagne." In the kitchen, James was plating orders with angry precision. "That guy again?" "With friends this time," Camille said. "I hate him," Bethany declared, carrying a tray of salads. "Like, genuinely hate him." "How do you stand it?" "Because I have to," Camille said simply. She brought the champagne, an expensive French label that cost $200. Theodore made a show of tasting it, nodding his approval, then launching into a story in German about a business deal he'd closed that week. Throughout the story, he made side comments about Camille. How she was probably dreaming of affording champagne someday. How service work was perfect for people with limited options. How some people were simply born to serve while others were born to be served. His companions grew increasingly uncomfortable. The red-haired woman kept looking at Camille apologetically. The younger man stared at his menu. Only the third associate, an older man with gray temples, seemed to find Theodore's performance amusing. Camille took their orders and delivered them to the kitchen. She moved through the evening on autopilot, her mind somewhere else. She'd gotten good at that, at being physically present while mentally absent. Around 8:30, during a brief lull, Mrs. Patterson pulled her aside. "Table 7 needs more wine," the owner said. Then, more quietly, "Are you all right, Camille?" Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Patterson studied her for a moment. He's good for business. The bills he runs up feed 3 families for a week. But if you want me to say something to him, I will. Camille was surprised by the offer. Mrs. Patterson wasn't known for her warmth. Thank you, but it's fine. Really? You're one of my best servers, Mrs. Patterson said. Professional, punctual, never complains. I don't want to lose you. You won't, Camille promised. She brought more wine to table 7. Theodore was in the middle of another story, this one about a competitor he'd crushed. The German flowed smoothly, his voice confident and commanding. "Uendi das Beste ist," he said. "Sie haben nie kommen sehen. Genau wie unser klein Kellnerin hier nie sieht, when it's über sie sprech." And the best part is, they never saw it coming. Just like our little waitress here never sees when I'm talking about her. He looked directly at Camille as he said it, a small smile playing at his lips. Something flickered in Camille's chest. Not anger, not yet, but something close. A tiny spark of resistance she'd been carefully smothering for weeks. She poured the wine, her movements precise, and walked away without responding. At 9:15, Theodore's party finished their meal. The bill came to $600. Theodore pulled out his wallet and dropped 3 20s on the table. $60. On a $600 meal. It was technically 10%, but in a restaurant like the Sterling Oak, 20% was standard. The red-haired woman looked at the money, then at Theodore. "That's not enough." "It's more than adequate for the service we received," Theodore replied coolly. "She's been professional all evening." Despite. The woman trailed off, but her meaning was clear. Theodore stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "I tip based on the level of engagement I receive. Our server has been adequately robotic. The tip reflects that." He walked out. His companions followed, though the woman glanced back at Camille with an expression that might have been apology or pity or both. Camille collected the money and cleared the table. Bethany appeared at her elbow. "That was brutal." "It's fine." "It's not fine. None of this is fine." Bethany's voice was fierce. "You should report him or something. Or quit. You deserve better than this." "I can't afford better than this," Camille said quietly. That night, the bus ride home felt longer than usual. The city outside the window was bright and busy, full of people living their lives, chasing their dreams, being treated with basic dignity. Camille felt separate from all of it, like she was watching the world through glass. At home, her mother was watching a cooking show. Gloria looked up when Camille entered, her brown eyes immediately concerned. "Baby, what's wrong?" "Nothing, Mama. Just tired." "Don't lie to me. You've been tired before. This is something else." Camille sat down heavily on the couch, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. "How do you do it, Mama? How do you keep hoping when everything feels impossible?" Gloria turned off the television and shifted in her chair to face her daughter fully. "What happened?" So Camille told her. Not everything, but enough. About Theodore Lancaster, about his German mockery, about feeling invisible and worthless and trapped. When she finished, Gloria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Come here, baby." Camille moved to sit on the floor beside her mother's chair, resting her head on Gloria's lap the way she had as a child. Gloria stroked her daughter's hair gently. "Listen to me," Gloria said. "That man, whoever he is, he doesn't define you. His opinion doesn't matter. His words don't change who you are. But they hurt, Mama. They hurt so much." "I know. But pain is temporary. Your worth isn't. You are a brilliant, educated, kind woman. You speak 5 languages. You've studied at one of the best universities in the world. You've sacrificed your dreams to take care of me." Gloria's voice cracked. "Don't let some cruel man with money make you forget any of that. How do I remember when I spend every day being treated like I'm nothing? By knowing the truth in here." Gloria placed her hand over Camille's heart. "The truth is, he's the small one. He's the one who needs to hurt others to feel big. You're already bigger than him. You just can't see it right now." Camille closed her eyes, letting her mother's words wash over her. She wanted to believe them. She wanted to feel big and valuable and worthy. But all she felt was tired. The next morning, Camille woke with a sense of dread. It was Friday, which meant a double shift at the restaurant. Lunch and dinner. 12 hours on her feet, smiling and serving and swallowing her feelings. She helped her mother with breakfast and medications, then caught the early bus downtown. The Sterling Oak was quiet in the morning, the bright dining room empty except for staff preparing for lunch service. James was in the kitchen, prepping vegetables. "Morning, Camille." "Morning. You look exhausted." "Thanks," she said dryly. He grinned. I meant it with love. Listen about that Lancaster guy. You want me to accidentally drop his next meal on the floor? I'll make it look convincing. Despite her mood, Camille smiled. No, but thank you for the offer. The lunch shift was manageable. Regular customers, normal interactions, adequate tips. For a few hours, Camille almost felt like a regular person doing a regular job. Then 5 o'clock came, and with it, Theodore Lancaster. He wasn't supposed to be there. He only came on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But there he was, walking through the door in another perfect suit, heading straight for table 7. Mrs. Patterson seated him. Camille's heart sank. When she approached his table, Theodore looked up with that now familiar cold smile. Überraschung. Surprise. Ich word sie mit einem Zusatzlichen Besuch segnet. I thought I'd bless you with an extra visit. What can I get you to drink? Camille asked, her voice flat. So enthusiastisch. So lebendig. So enthusiastic. So lively. He laughed, the sound devoid of real humor. Bringen Sie mir einen Scotch. Den Touristen, den Sie haben. Nicht, dass Sie den Unterschied kennen würden. Bring me a Scotch. The most expensive you have. Not that you'd know the difference. Camille brought the drink. Theodore sipped it slowly, making comments in German the entire time. About her appearance. About her intelligence. About her worthlessness. And something inside Camille began to change. It was small at first, barely noticeable. A tightening in her chest. A warmth behind her eyes. A whisper in her mind that said, this has to stop. But she pushed it down. She had to. For her mother. For the job. For survival. Theodore ordered dinner and ate slowly as always. Camille served him with mechanical efficiency. When he finally left, dropping another insulting tip on the table, she collected the money without expression. Bethany found her in the kitchen after the shift ended. You're coming out with us tonight. No arguments. I can't. My mother is fine for one evening. You're going to burn out if you don't take care of yourself. Bethany's brown eyes were determined. James and I are going to that diner on 5th Street. Just coffee and conversation. Come with us. Camille wanted to refuse. But the thought of going straight home, of sitting in that small apartment with her exhaustion and her mother's concerned looks, felt overwhelming. Okay, she said. Just for an hour. The diner was bright and cheerful, with red booths and a black and white checkered floor. They sat in a corner booth, nursing coffee and sharing a plate of fries. James told stories about his early days in Chicago, when he'd first immigrated from Korea and barely spoke English. Bethany talked about her family, her 3 younger brothers, her dreams of becoming a teacher. And Camille, hesitantly at first, told them about Paris, about the Sorbonne, about her studies and her dissertation and the life she'd left behind. Wait, you speak German? James asked, his eyes wide. Like fluently? Yes. And French, Italian, Spanish. I was studying linguistics. Bethany set down her coffee cup with a thunk. So when Lancaster speaks German at you, you understand every word? Camille nodded. Every single word. And you just let him? James looked bewildered. What choice do I have? I need the job. I need the money. You could put him in his place, Bethany said. You could respond in German and watch his face fall. And then what? He gets embarrassed and complains to Mrs. Patterson? I get fired? Then what happens to my mother? Camille shook her head. It's not worth it. James leaned back in the booth, studying her. You're stronger than me. I would have snapped by now. Strength doesn't have anything to do with it, Camille said quietly. It's just survival. They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting to lighter topics. For a brief moment, sitting in that bright diner with people who treated her like an equal, Camille felt almost like herself again. But when she got home and helped her mother to bed, when she lay in her own small bed staring at the ceiling, the weight of it all came crashing back. Theodore Lancaster's German words echoed in her mind. Worthless, invisible, simple, dim. And the worst part was, some small part of her was starting to believe him. October arrived with cooler weather and shorter days. The leaves on the trees lining Camille Street turned gold and red, a bright contrast to the gray sky. She watched them from the bus window on her way to work, thinking about change and seasons and how nothing stayed the same forever. Except this. This stayed the same. The uniform, the smile, the humiliation. Every Tuesday and Thursday, and now sometimes Fridays too, Theodore Lancaster at table 7. It had been 6 weeks since their first encounter. 6 weeks of German insults, of inadequate tips, of being treated like furniture. Camille had become expert at compartmentalizing, at separating herself from the experience. When Theodore spoke, she imagined herself somewhere else. Paris usually. Walking along the Seine at sunset, a book tucked under her arm. But the walls she built were starting to crack. It was a Tuesday evening, the restaurant moderately busy, when Theodore arrived with a date. She was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair styled in waves and a pink dress that probably cost more than Camille's monthly rent. The woman looked nervous, clutching a small purse and smiling too brightly. Mrs. Patterson seated them at table 7. Camille approached, notepad ready. "Good evening. Can I start you with drinks?" Theodore barely looked at her. "Champagner," he said, then switched to English for his date's benefit. "The good French one. Not that domestic nonsense." "Of course, sir." As she walked away, she heard Theodore switch back to German. "Entschuldigen Sie den Service. Das Personal hier ist begrenzt. Excuse the service. The staff here is limited." The woman's response was too quiet to hear, but her expression said she was uncomfortable. Camille brought the champagne, a bottle of Veuve Clicquot that cost $300. Theodore made a show of tasting it, nodding approval, then pouring a glass for his date. "So tell me about yourself," Theodore said to the woman, speaking English now. "Your profile mentioned you work in marketing?" The woman launched into a nervous explanation of her job. Theodore listened with half his attention, his eyes occasionally drifting to his phone. When the woman paused, he would make a comment that sounded interested but wasn't really. Camille took their order. Filet mignon for him, salmon for her. As she wrote, Theodore switched to German again. "Sie denken wahrscheinlich, dass dies ein Eck Verbindung ist. Arms ding." She probably thinks this is a real connection. Poor thing. He gestured at his date, who was smiling hopefully at him. Then he looked at Camille. "Aber Sie verstehen nicht wahr? Sie verstehen was es heißt, unsichtbar zu sein. Unwichtig zu sein. But you understand, don't you? You understand what it means to be invisible. To be unimportant." Something in his tone was different tonight. Not just cruel but almost philosophical. Like he was genuinely curious about what it felt like to be beneath him. Camille's hand tightened on her notepad, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'll have your orders right out." In the kitchen, her hands were shaking. James noticed immediately. "What happened?" "Nothing. Just nothing." She set down her notepad and took a deep breath. Bethany came in carrying an empty tray. "Is Lancaster here?" "With a date," Camille confirmed. "Poor woman." Bethany shook her head. "Why do terrible men always get dates?" "Because they're rich," James said flatly. "Money covers a lot of sins." Camille brought the meals to table 7. The woman was talking about a marketing campaign she'd worked on, clearly trying to impress Theodore. He was scrolling through his phone, making occasional sounds that might have been agreement or might have been nothing at all. When Camille set down the plates, Theodore looked up. "Danke, Kellnerin." "Thanks, waitress." Then in German, "Ist es nicht faszinierend, wie manche Menschen einfach akzeptieren, was das Leben ihnen gibt? Keine Ambitionen. Kein Traum. Nur Akzeptanz. Isn't it fascinating how some people just accept what life gives them? No ambition. No dreams. Just acceptance." He was looking directly at her as he spoke. His date glanced at Camille, sensing something was off but not understanding what. "Is everything all right?" the woman asked Theodore. "Perfect," he said in English, finally putting down his phone. "Just commenting on the service. Sometimes I find it interesting to observe people in their natural habitat." The woman looked confused, then uncomfortable. She picked at her salmon without much enthusiasm. Camille walked away, her chest tight. His words kept replaying in her mind. No ambition. No dreams. Just acceptance. He was wrong. She had dreams. She'd had so many dreams. They were just buried now, suffocated under medical bills and double shifts and the daily grind of survival. But they were still there, weren't they? The evening dragged on. Theodore's date grew quieter as dinner progressed, her initial nervousness morphing into something like resignation. It was clear the evening wasn't going well. Clear that Theodore wasn't really interested in her, wasn't really interested in anyone but himself. When dessert came, the woman excused herself to the restroom. Theodore watched her go, then immediately switched to German and looked at Camille, who was refilling water glasses nearby. "Wissen Sie, was das traurig in Ihnen ist? You know what's sad about you? Sie hatten wahrscheinlich einmal Potenzial. Vielleicht wären Sie sogar intelligent. Aber das Leben hat Sie geschliffen, bis nichts mehr übrig ist. Bis Sie nur noch das sind. You probably had potential once. Maybe you were even intelligent. But life has ground you down until there's nothing left. Until you're just this. He gestured at her with his water glass, the movement dismissive and cutting. Ein leer Hall. Ein Diener. Nix mehr. An empty shell. A servant. Nothing more. Camille's hand trembled as she set down the water pitcher. For a moment, just a moment, she considered responding. Considered telling him exactly what she thought of him in flawless German. But then she saw his face. The cold satisfaction in his eyes. The way he was waiting, almost hoping for her to react. He wanted her to break. He was enjoying this. Not just the cruelty, but the anticipation of her eventual collapse. So she swallowed everything down, smiled her professional smile, and walked away. When Theodore's date returned, she made an excuse about an early morning and asked for the check. Theodore seemed unsurprised, barely disappointed. He paid with a credit card, left a precisely 15% tip, and escorted the woman out. As they passed the hostess stand, Camille heard the woman say, "I don't think this is going to work out." Theodore's response was too quiet to hear, but his tone was indifferent. The rest of Camille's shift passed in a blur. She served other tables, collected other tips, smiled other smiles. But part of her mind was somewhere else, replaying Theodore's words. Empty shell. Nothing more. On the bus ride home, those words wouldn't stop echoing. She stared at her reflection in the window, seeing a woman in a burgundy uniform, her hair pulled back, her eyes tired. Was that all she was now? A servant? Nothing more? No. She had to believe that wasn't true. At home, her mother was already in bed. Camille checked on her, making sure her medications were laid out for morning, then retreated to her own room. She opened her laptop and pulled up her dissertation. The words on the screen blurred as tears filled her eyes. She'd written this. She'd researched and analyzed and created something meaningful. She was more than a waitress, more than Theodore Lancaster's punching bag. But knowing that and feeling it were two different things. Her phone buzzed. A text from Bethany, "You okay? You seemed off tonight." Camille typed back, "I'm fine. Just tired." Another buzz, this time from James, "Lancaster's the worst. You're a saint for dealing with him." She didn't feel like a saint. She felt like a coward. Someone who took abuse because she had no other choice. Camille closed her laptop and lay down on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The bright streetlight outside cast patterns across the white paint, the same patterns she'd been staring at for months. She thought about Paris. About the Sorbonne Library with its high ceilings and walls of books. About the apartment she'd shared with two other students, tiny but full of laughter and debate. About the professors who had respected her mind, valued her contributions, seen her as an equal. That woman felt like someone from another lifetime. A sob caught in her throat. Camille pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to stay quiet so her mother wouldn't hear. But the tears came anyway, hot and bitter and exhausting. She cried for the life she'd lost. For the dignity Theodore was slowly stripping away. For the woman she used to be and the woman she was becoming. When the tears finally stopped, Camille felt hollow. Empty, just like Theodore had said. But beneath the emptiness, something else stirred. Something small but stubborn. A tiny voice that whispered, "This isn't forever. This isn't who you are. Hold on just a little longer." Camille closed her eyes and held on to that voice. It was all she had. The next morning, her mother's condition took a turn. Gloria woke up dizzy and nauseous, her blood sugar dangerously low despite taking her medication. Camille called the doctor, who adjusted the prescription and warned that they needed to monitor her more closely. "These medications are keeping her stable, but they're expensive," the doctor said over the phone. "Is cost going to be an issue?" Camille looked at her mother, pale and weak in her blue chair, and felt a new wave of desperation. No, it won't be an issue. But it was an issue. The new medication cost $200 more per month. Camille did the math in her head. Even with her regular shifts and tips, she was barely making ends meet now. Adding $200 meant something had to give. She could pick up more shifts. She could ask Mrs. Patterson for more hours. She could endure more Tuesdays and Thursdays with Theodore Lancaster if it meant her mother stayed alive. So that's what she did. "I need more hours," Camille told Mrs. Patterson that afternoon. "Whatever you have available, I'll take it." Mrs. Patterson studied her with those sharp eyes. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, ma'am. I need the money. I can give you more weeknight shifts. But Camille, you're already working full-time. Don't burn yourself out." "I won't," Camille lied. Over the next week, she worked 10, sometimes 12-hour shifts. The extra money helped, but the exhaustion was cumulative. Her feet ached constantly. Her back hurt. She lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. And through it all, Theodore Lancaster continued his twice-weekly appearances, his German cruelty, his systematic dismantling of her self-worth. It was Thursday evening, 2 weeks after the disaster date, when something inside Camille finally threatened to snap. Theodore arrived with 2 business associates, both men in expensive suits. They were discussing a merger, numbers and percentages flowing freely. Camille served them with her usual professional distance, but her hands shook slightly when she poured water. Theodore noticed. Of course he noticed. "Unser Kellnerin sieht müde aus," he said to his companions in German. "Our waitress looks tired. Vielleicht ist die Arbeit zu anstrengend für sie. Vielleicht braucht sie etwas Einfeatures. Obwohl ich nicht weiß, was Einfeatures sein könnte als das." Perhaps the work is too strenuous for her. Perhaps she needs something simpler. Though I don't know what could be simpler than this. One of the associates, uncomfortable, said in English, "Should we just order?" "Of course," Theodore replied, then looked at Camille. "Können Sie das schaffen? Oder ist 3 Bestellungen zu viel für Sie? Can you handle that? Or is 3 orders too much for you?" Camille's vision blurred for a moment. The room felt too bright, too loud. Her chest was tight, her breathing shallow. She was having a panic attack. Right there in the middle of the dining room. "I'll be right back," she managed, turning away quickly. She made it to the kitchen before her knees buckled. James caught her, his strong hands steady on her arms. Whoa, what's wrong?" I can't breathe," Camille gasped. Bethany rushed over. "Sit down. Head between your knees." They guided her to a stool in the corner, away from the other kitchen staff. Camille tried to follow Bethany's instructions, tried to slow her breathing, but panic had its claws in her. "Is it Lancaster?" James asked, his voice hard. Camille nodded, unable to speak. "That's it. I'm telling Mrs. Patterson." "No," Camille forced out. "Please. I need this job." "You need to breathe more than you need this job," Bethany said firmly. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the kitchen doorway. "What's going on?" The 3 of them looked at her. Mrs. Patterson took one look at Camille's face and her expression hardened. "It's that Lancaster man, isn't it?" Camille wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. She just nodded. Mrs. Patterson's jaw tightened. "Stay here. I'll handle this." "No, please." Camille tried to stand, but Bethany held her shoulders. "Let her handle it," Bethany said. Mrs. Patterson walked into the dining room. Through the kitchen door, Camille could see her approach table 7. She couldn't hear what was said, but Mrs. Patterson's posture was stiff, her gestures sharp. Theodore's face went from surprise to annoyed to coldly angry. He stood, said something brief, and walked out of the restaurant. His associates scrambled to follow. Mrs. Patterson returned to the kitchen. "He's gone." "What did you say to him?" Camille asked. "That his behavior was inappropriate and he needed to leave." Mrs. Patterson crossed her arms. "I should have done it weeks ago. I'm sorry, Camille. I put profits over people and that was wrong. But the money he spent isn't worth this." Mrs. Patterson gestured at Camille, still shaking on the stool. "You're a valuable employee and a decent person. He's neither. The math is simple." Tears pricked at Camille's eyes. "Thank you. Go home. Take the rest of the night off. Paid." "I can't afford." "Paid," Mrs. Patterson repeated firmly. "Go home, take care of yourself. Come back tomorrow when you're ready." On the bus ride home, Camille felt numb. Part of her was relieved. Theodore was banned from the restaurant. She wouldn't have to see him again, wouldn't have to endure his cruelty. But another part of her felt defeated. She'd broken. After 6 weeks, he'd finally gotten to her. He'd proven that she could be ground down, that she had limits, that she was, in the end, exactly what he'd called her, an empty shell. At home, Gloria took one look at her daughter and opened her arms. Camille collapsed into them, crying again, all the held-back pain pouring out. "Oh, baby," Gloria murmured, stroking Camille's hair. "Oh, my sweet girl. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I tried, Mama. I tried to be strong. You're strong. You've been so strong. But everyone has a breaking point. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human." They stayed like that for a long time, Camille crying and Gloria holding her, until the tears finally ran dry. That night, lying in bed, Camille thought about Theodore's face when Mrs. Patterson had confronted him. The anger, the indignation, the absolute shock that someone had dared to stand up to him. For 6 weeks, Camille had taken his abuse in silence. But in the end, someone had defended her. Someone had said enough. It wasn't the victory she'd imagined. It wasn't her standing up to him, putting him in his place, proving her worth. But it was something. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Want to see what happens when years of silence finally break? When truth becomes more powerful than money or pride? Keep watching and don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever kept silent when you wanted to scream? Tell us your story below. 3 days passed. 3 days of working at the Sterling Oak without the looming threat of Theodore Lancaster. 3 days of breathing easier, smiling more genuinely, feeling almost like a normal person with a normal job. But on Sunday evening, everything changed. Camille was working the dinner shift, the restaurant moderately busy with weekend diners. The bright chandeliers cast their usual glow, conversation hummed pleasantly, and Camille moved through her section with practiced efficiency. Then Theodore walked in. Camille's heart stopped. He shouldn't be here. Mrs. Patterson had banned him. But there he was, wearing a navy suit and that same cold expression, standing at the hostess stand. Mrs. Patterson wasn't working tonight. The hostess was Lily, a college student who worked weekends. She didn't know about the ban. Camille watched from across the dining room as Lily smiled at Theodore, checked her seating chart, and led him to table 7. No, this couldn't be happening. Camille approached Lily at the hostess stand. That customer. He's not supposed to be here. Lily looked confused. What do you mean? Mrs. Patterson banned him. He can't be seated. She didn't tell me about any ban. And I can't just kick out a customer without the manager on duty. Lily glanced toward table 7 nervously. You handle it or I'll call the night manager. Camille's stomach twisted. The night manager was Trevor, a man who cared more about avoiding conflict than doing the right thing. If she involved him, he'd probably let Theodore stay. She took a deep breath and walked to table 7. Theodore looked up at her approach and something flickered across his face. Surprise maybe. Or satisfaction. So, he said in English, you're still here. You need to leave, sir. You're not welcome in this restaurant. I checked with the hostess. She seated me. Therefore, I'm a customer. His voice was calm, reasonable, which somehow made it worse. Mrs. Patterson banned you. Mrs. Patterson isn't here. Theodore leaned back in his chair. And unless you're the owner, which I doubt given your position, you can't actually make me leave. He was right and he knew it. Camille felt trapped, the familiar helplessness washing over her. I'm not trying to cause trouble, Theodore continued. I just want dinner. Surely you can be professional enough to serve me one meal? Professional. He was using her own standards against her. Camille had built her entire survival strategy on being professional, on never letting emotions interfere with her job. And now he was exploiting that. Fine, she said tightly. What would you like to drink? Wasser, he said, switching to German. You individualite ja ambition respect, average bis Wiefel, das Sie das verstehen. Water. And perhaps a bit of respect, but I doubt you understand that. Something in Camille's chest tightened. The familiar words. The familiar cruelty. It was starting again and she couldn't stop it. She brought him water. He ordered the ribeye, speaking mostly in German, making his usual degrading comments. Camille took the order mechanically, her mind racing. She could walk out. She could quit right now, refuse to serve him. But then what? She needed this job. Her mother needed her to have this job. In the kitchen, Bethany saw her face. He's back. Yes. How is that possible? Mrs. Patterson banned him. She's not here tonight. And Lily didn't know. Camille's hands were shaking as she entered the order into the system. James came over, his expression dark. You want me to accidentally mess up his order? Food poisoning isn't that hard to fake. No, I just want to get through this shift. Camille closed her eyes. I'm so tired, Bethany. So tired of this. Then don't serve him. Tell Trevor you refuse. Trevor will make me anyway. And then I'll look difficult, and Mrs. Patterson will hear about it, and maybe I'll lose my job for refusing a customer. Camille opened her eyes. I don't have the luxury of refusing. She brought Theodore his meal. He ate slowly, speaking German the entire time, commenting on her appearance, her intelligence, her worthlessness. The same script he'd performed for weeks. But this time, something was different. This time, Camille felt less like she was enduring and more like she was breaking. Around 8 o'clock, Theodore called her over. Nach ein Getränk. Another drink. Camille brought him water. He took a sip, then set down the glass and looked at her directly. Sagen Sie mir etwas, he said in German. Träumen Sie jemals? Oder haben Sie vor langer Zeit aufgehört zu träumen? Tell me something. Do you ever dream? Or did you stop dreaming a long time ago? There was something different in his tone. Not quite kind, but not purely cruel either. Almost curious. Camille didn't respond. She turned to walk away. Ich kenne Renti, Theodore continued, his German flowing smoothly. Still. Accept die Rent. Zu stolz, Hilf zu bitten, aber zu verangsteit, für sich selbst einzustand. Sie ertragen, while sie glauben, dass sie kein ander Wahl haben. I know your type. Quiet. Accepting. Too proud to ask for help, but too frightened to stand up for yourself. You endure because you believe you have no choice. Camille stopped walking. Something in those words pierced deeper than his usual insults. Aber das Traurige ist, Theodore continued, Sie hatten wahrscheinlich einmal Traum, Ziel, Hoffnungen. Und das Leben hat es ihnen genommen, Stück für Stück, bis sie das geworden sind. Ein Dienerin, unsichtbar, bedeutungslos. But the sad part is you probably had dreams once, goals, hopes, and life took them from you piece by piece until you became this. A servant, invisible, meaningless. Jetzt messen sie ihren Wert und Trinkgeldern Lacheln der Fähigkeit, Demütigung zu ertragen. Was für ein Verschwendung. And now you measure your worth in tips and smiles and the ability to endure humiliation. What a waste. That word, waste. It hit Camille like a physical blow. She turned around slowly. Theodore was watching her with those cold gray eyes, waiting for a reaction. And Camille realized in that moment that she was done. Done with silence. Done with enduring. Done with letting this man define her worth. She walked back to the table and looked him directly in the eyes. Sie haben recht, she said in perfect, fluent German. Ich hatte Traum. Ich hatte Ziel. Ich hatte ein ganzes Leben vor mir. You're right. I had dreams. I had goals. I had an entire life ahead of me. Theodore's eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly in shock. Camille continued, her German flawless, her pronunciation better than his. Ich war PhD Kandidatin in der Sorbonne in Paris. Ich have Linguistik und Europäische Literatur studiert. Ich spreche 5 Sprachen fließend. Deutsch, Französisch, Italienisch, Spanish und Niederländisch English. I was a PhD candidate at the Sorbonne in Paris. I studied linguistics and European literature. I speak 5 languages fluently. German, French, Italian, Spanish, and of course English. Theodore sat frozen, his face pale. Also verste ich Jed's einzeln Wort, das Sie in den letzten Wochen gesagt haben. So I understand every single word you said over the past weeks. Jeden Kommentar über mein Intelligenz, mein Aussehen, meinen Wort als Mensch. Ich habe alles verstanden. Every comment about my intelligence, my appearance, my worth as a human being. I understood it all. Other diners were starting to notice. Conversations quieted as people turned to watch. Camille switched to French, her accent perfect. Vous pensez que j'étais simple? Que j'étais ignorante? Vous vous trompez. You thought I was simple? That I was ignorant? You were wrong. Then Italian. Ho lasciato la mia vita, I mi studi, I mi sogni per prendermi cura di mia madre che era malata. Non perché ero stupida ma perché la amavo. I left my life, my studies, my dreams to take care of my mother who was sick. Not because I was stupid, but because I loved her. Then Spanish. Y cada dia he soportado sus insultos porque necesitaba este trabajo. No porque no tuviera options, sino porque el amor requires sacrificio. And every day I've endured your insults because I needed this job. Not because I didn't have options, but because love requires sacrifice. Finally, she switched back to English. You called me worthless, invisible, a waste. But the truth is, Mr. Lancaster, you're the one who's empty. You're the one who has to hurt others to feel important. You're the one whose cruelty reveals how small you really are. The restaurant was completely silent now. Every eye was on them. Theodore's face had gone from pale to flushed. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. I am not worthless, Camille continued, her voice steady. I am educated. I am intelligent. I am kind. I am strong enough to endure your cruelty without becoming cruel myself. I am everything you will never be, no matter how much money you have or how many languages you speak badly. That last word, badly, was a knife twist. Theodore's German was good, but Camille's was better, and everyone in the room could hear it. I quit, Camille said, untying her burgundy apron. I won't serve you. I won't serve anyone in a place that allows people like you to treat people like me with such disrespect. She set her apron on the table, turned, and walked toward the exit. The restaurant erupted in applause. Camille kept walking, her eyes blurring with tears, her heart pounding. She had done it. She had finally stood up for herself. Behind her, she heard Theodore's voice calling out, "Wait, please wait." She paused at the door, looking back. Theodore had stood up from his table. His face was no longer cold or arrogant. He looked stunned, almost stricken. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice carrying across the silent restaurant. I'm so sorry." Camille looked at him for a long moment. Then she pushed through the door and walked out into the cool October night. The air was fresh and clean. The stars were bright overhead. And for the first time in months, Camille felt like she could breathe. She walked to the bus stop, sat on the bench, and put her face in her hands. The tears came then, hot and fast. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of release. She had spoken. She had stood up. She had reclaimed her voice and her word. And nothing would ever be the same. Camille sat on the bus, watching the city lights blur past the window. Her hands were still shaking, adrenaline still pumping through her veins. What had she just done? She'd quit her job. She'd humiliated a rich, powerful man in front of dozens of witnesses. She'd thrown away her only source of income. But God, it had felt good. When she got home, Gloria was still awake, reading a book in her blue chair. She looked up as Camille entered, immediately sensing something was different. "Baby? What happened?" Camille sat on the couch and told her everything. The words poured out. Theodore returning, the German insults, her finally responding in his language, the look on his face, the applause, the quitting. When she finished, Gloria was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, a huge, radiant smile that transformed her face. "That's my girl," she said proudly. "That's my brilliant, strong, wonderful girl. Mama, I quit my job. I don't have any income now. I don't know how we're going to pay for your medication or the rent or... We'll figure it out," Gloria said firmly. "We always do. But Camille, you got your dignity back tonight. That's worth more than any job. Dignity doesn't pay bills. No, but it lets you sleep at night." Gloria reached out and took her daughter's hand. "You've been carrying so much, baby. Too much. Maybe this is the universe's way of forcing a change." Camille wanted to believe that. But the practical part of her, the part that had been managing their survival for months, was already panicking. Without her income, they had maybe 2 weeks before things fell apart. That night, she lay in bed and tried to make a plan. She could apply for other restaurant jobs. She could look for office work, retail, anything. But it would take time to find something, time to start earning again. Time they didn't have. She finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning, exhausted and worried. The next day was Monday. Camille woke early, determined to start job hunting immediately. She made her mother breakfast, helped with medications, then opened her laptop. Before she could start searching job sites, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Miss Johnson? This is Theodore Lancaster." Camille's blood ran cold. "How did you get this number?" "From the restaurant's employee records. I know I shouldn't have, but I needed to speak with you." He paused. "Please don't hang up." Camille's finger hovered over the end call button, but curiosity held her. "What do you want?" "To apologize. Properly. Not in front of an audience. Just human to human." "I don't think you know how to do that." "You're probably right." His voice was different, quieter, almost humble. "But I'd like to try. Would you meet me for coffee? Just 30 minutes. I promise I'll never bother you again after that." "Why should I?" "Because I owe you that much. And because..." He hesitated. "Because I've been thinking about what you said. About who I am. About what I've become. And I don't like it." Camille closed her eyes. She should say no. Should hang up. Should never speak to this man again. But something in his voice sounded genuine. And she'd spent months reading people, learning to distinguish real emotion from performance. This sounded real. "One coffee," she said. 30 minutes. There's a cafe on Maple Street. Tomorrow at 10. "Thank you. Thank you so much." He hung up. Camille stared at her phone, wondering if she'd just made a terrible mistake. The next morning, she dressed carefully. Not the burgundy uniform, but not too nice either. Jeans and a green sweater, casual but put together. She wanted to look like herself, whoever that was. The cafe was bright and cheerful, with yellow walls and white tables. Camille arrived first and chose a table near the window. She ordered coffee and waited, her stomach in knots. Theodore arrived exactly at 10. He wore jeans and a blue button-down shirt, no suit jacket. He looked different without the armor of expensive clothing. Younger, more human. He sat across from her, ordering his own coffee from the passing waiter. For a moment they just looked at each other. "Thank you for coming," Theodore said finally. "You have 29 minutes left." He flinched but nodded. "Fair enough. I'll be direct. I'm sorry. For everything. For every insult, every cruel word, every moment I made you feel less than. I was wrong. Deeply, inexcusably wrong." Camille studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation. But he seemed sincere. "Why did you do it?" "Honestly, because I could. Because you didn't fight back and that made it easy." He ran a hand through his hair. "No, that's not quite right. I did it because I'm miserable and miserable people hurt others. It's not an excuse. Just an explanation. You're rich, successful, powerful. How are you miserable?" Theodore laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I have money. I don't have much else. No real friends. No family that speaks to me. No purpose beyond making more money. I'm 42 years old, and I've spent my entire adult life building an empire that means nothing. That's not my fault." "No, it's not. But you were an easy target. Someone I could feel superior to, which is pathetic because you're clearly more intelligent, more educated, and more fundamentally decent than I could ever be." He met her eyes. "You humbled me on Sunday. You showed me what I've become. And I hated what I saw." The waiter brought Theodore's coffee. He wrapped his hands around the cup but didn't drink. "I looked you up," he continued, "after I got home. Found your academic papers online. Your research on language evolution was brilliant. You were presenting at international conferences at 25. Professors at the Sorbonne wrote you recommendation letters calling you one of the most promising scholars they'd seen." Camille felt exposed, like he'd peered into a private part of her soul. "That was a long time ago. 3 years. You're what, 28 now? 29. You had to leave because of your mother's illness. I found that out too. You've been supporting her, paying for medications, working double shifts." His voice cracked slightly. "And I spent weeks tearing you down for it. For being loyal and loving and self-sacrificing." Camille's throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that I see you. Really see you. Not as a waitress or a servant or any of the horrible things I called you. As a person. A remarkable person who deserves so much better than what life and I have given you." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, people walked past the window going about their lives. The city moved on, indifferent to their conversation. "I lost myself," Theodore said quietly. "Somewhere along the way, I became this person I don't recognize. This cruel, arrogant, empty person. And I don't know how to get back." "That's not my problem to solve," Camille said. "No, it's mine." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "But I'd like to help you if you'll let me. This is my personal number. If you need anything, anything at all. A job reference, help with bills, connections in the academic world. Whatever you need." Camille looked at the card but didn't take it. "I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's restitution. I hurt you. I want to make it right. You can't. I know. But I'd like to try." He set the card on the table between them. "Your mother needs expensive medication. You need to finish your degree. I can help with both. Not as a handout, but as the bare minimum of what I owe you." Camille stared at the card. Pride screamed at her to refuse, to walk away with her dignity intact. But then she thought of her mother, of the medication bottles, of the unfinished dissertation on her laptop. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Because maybe if I help you, I can become someone I don't hate. Maybe if I do something good, it'll balance out some of the bad." He smiled sadly. "Selfish reasons, really. But the end result is the same. You get help. Your mother gets her medication. You get to go back to your studies. I can't go back to Paris. My mother needs me here. The Sorbonne has distance learning programs. You could finish your dissertation remotely, defend via video conference. I have connections there. I could make some calls." Camille's heart raced. Was this real? Could she actually finish her degree? Could her mother get the care she needed? "I don't trust you," she said bluntly. "Good. You shouldn't. But trust can be built. Let me prove myself. Let me show you that I'm capable of being better than I was." He pushed the card closer to her. "Please, let me try to make this right." Camille looked at the card, then at Theodore, then out the window at the bright morning sun. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Kindness, hope, and love should always lead. Was this kindness? Could someone like Theodore Lancaster be capable of genuine change? Or was this just another game, another way to exert power over her? But looking at his face, at the genuine remorse and desperate hope in his eyes, Camille thought maybe, just maybe, he was sincere. She picked up the card. "Okay," she said, "but I have conditions." "Anything. First, you help my mother. Full medical care, whatever she needs. But through a foundation or anonymous donation, not directly from you. I don't want her to know you're involved." "Done." "Second, you help me get back into the Sorbonne program and pay for it. But again, as a scholarship or grant, not as a personal gift. I need to earn this, not just be handed it." "I understand. Consider it done." Third, you work on yourself. See a therapist. Figure out why you hurt people. Become someone better. Because if you're going to be in my life in any capacity, I need to know you won't turn back into that man from the restaurant. Theodore nodded. "I've already made an appointment with a therapist. First session is Thursday." "Good." Camille folded the card carefully and put it in her pocket. "And fourth, we start over. Clean slate. No more waitress and customer. No more power dynamics. Just two people trying to navigate a complicated situation." "I'd like that very much." Theodore extended his hand. "Hello. I'm Theodore Lancaster. I'm a work in progress and a recovering jerk. Nice to meet you." Despite everything, Camille smiled. She shook his hand. "Camille Johnson. Former scholar, current caregiver, future PhD. The pleasure is, well, it's not exactly a pleasure yet, but maybe it could be." They talked for another hour, the 30-minute limit forgotten. Theodore told her about his childhood, his absent parents, his drive to succeed that had become an obsession. Camille told him about her mother, about Paris, about the dreams she'd put on hold. When they finally left the cafe, something had shifted. They weren't friends, not yet. But they weren't enemies either. They were two broken people trying to find their way back to wholeness. And maybe, just maybe, they could help each other along the way. The next 3 days passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. True to his word, Theodore worked quickly. On Wednesday, a representative from the Sterling Medical Foundation contacted Gloria, informing her that she'd been selected for a comprehensive care program. All her medications would be covered. She'd receive regular checkups with a specialist. Transportation to appointments would be provided. Gloria cried when she heard. "It's a miracle, baby. A real miracle." Camille smiled, not mentioning Theodore's involvement. She'd agreed to keep it anonymous, and she would honor that. Her mother deserved to receive help without the complicated feelings that would come from knowing its source. On Thursday, Camille received an email from the Sorbonne. They were pleased to inform her that she'd been awarded the Lancaster European Studies Fellowship, a newly established grant that would cover her tuition and provide a living stipend. She could complete her degree remotely, with only one trip to Paris required for her defense. Camille read the email 3 times, her hands shaking. It was real. She was going back. She could finish what she'd started. She called Theodore immediately. "Did you do this?" "I told you I would." His voice was warm. "Congratulations, Dr. Johnson. Or you will be soon." "I haven't defended yet." "You will. I've read your work. You're brilliant." Camille felt tears in her eyes. When was the last time someone had called her brilliant and actually meant it? "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you properly. Just finish your degree. That's all the thanks I need." On Friday morning, the medical foundation sent a van to take Gloria to her first appointment with the specialist, Dr. Sarah Chen. The doctor was thorough and kind, spending 2 hours examining Gloria, adjusting her medications, and creating a comprehensive care plan. When Gloria came home that evening, she looked happier than Camille had seen her in months. Dr. Chen said, "My condition is manageable. With the right treatment, I could have 20, 30 more good years." Camille hugged her mother tightly. "That's wonderful, Mama." She asked about you too. Said the foundation wanted to make sure the whole family was supported. "They're even offering me a home health aide 2 days a week, so you don't have to worry about me so much." Everything was falling into place. But Camille felt strange about it. Grateful, yes. Relieved, absolutely. But also uncomfortable. This was too much. Too fast. Theodore was essentially remaking their lives, and while the results were positive, she felt a loss of control. Saturday evening, Theodore called. "How's your mother?" "Much better. Thank you." "And you? Have you started working on your dissertation?" "Not yet. It's been a busy week." "Of course. Listen, I know this has all happened quickly. I wanted to ask if you'd have dinner with me, just to talk, to make sure you're comfortable with everything." Camille hesitated. Dinner felt too personal, too much like a date. But they did need to talk, and doing it in a public place felt safer than more coffee shop meetings. "Okay, where?" There's a quiet Italian place on Oak Street. Tuesday at 7? I'll be there. Tuesday evening, Camille dressed in a simple red dress she'd bought years ago in Paris. It still fit, though it hung a bit looser now. She arrived at the restaurant to find Theodore already there, wearing dark jeans and a white shirt. Casual but nice. The restaurant was indeed quiet, with low lighting and intimate tables. Not bright like the sterling oak, but not dark either. The walls were cream-colored, decorated with paintings of Italian landscapes. They ordered. Camille chose pasta primavera, Theodore got risotto. They made small talk while waiting for their food, discussing the weather, the city, nothing of consequence. When their meals arrived, Theodore set down his fork and looked at her seriously. I want to be transparent with you about something. Camille's stomach tightened. What? I'm enjoying this. Getting to know you. Helping you. It makes me feel purposeful in a way I haven't felt in years. He paused. But I don't want you to feel obligated to spend time with me because I'm helping your mother. If you want to maintain distance, just receive the assistance and never see me again, I understand. Camille considered this. The honest answer was complicated. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Part of me is still angry at you. Part of me doesn't trust you. But another part sees that you're trying to change, and I respect that. Fair enough. Why are you doing this, really? Not the guilt or the restitution. What's the real reason? Theodore was quiet for a long moment. Because you reminded me that there's more to life than what I've been living. You sacrificed your dreams for someone you loved. You endured humiliation with grace. You maintained your kindness even when I was cruel. You're everything I'm not, and being around you makes me want to be better. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. I know, and I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm doing that work myself with my therapist. But your friendship, if you're willing to offer it, would mean a great deal to me. Friendship. The word felt safer than whatever else this could become. I think I could do friendship. Eventually, after we build some trust. I'll earn it, Theodore promised. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Theodore asked, tell me about your dissertation. What's it about? So Camille told him. About how languages evolved after World War II, how cultural trauma reshaped syntax and vocabulary, how identity and language were inextricably linked. As she talked, she felt parts of herself waking up. The scholar, the researcher, the woman who loved language and ideas. Theodore listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions, engaging with her ideas. It was a conversation between equals, the kind Camille hadn't had since leaving Paris. You light up when you talk about this, Theodore observed. It's what I love, what I was meant to do. Then I'm glad you get to do it again. After dinner, Theodore walked her to her car. At the door, he turned to her. Thank you for giving me a chance. For not writing me off completely. Everyone deserves a chance to change, Camille said. But Theodore, actions matter. Keep doing the right thing. Keep working on yourself. Words are easy. Consistent behavior is hard. I understand. As Camille drove home, she thought about the evening. It had been nice. More than nice. Theodore had been attentive and kind and genuinely interested in her work. This was a different man than the one who had tormented her at the Sterling Oak. But could people really change? Could someone who had been so cruel really become kind? Time would tell. Over the next few weeks, a pattern developed. Theodore would call or text every few days, checking in on Gloria's health, asking about Camille's progress on her dissertation, sometimes suggesting they meet for coffee or a meal. Camille said yes more often than she said no. Each meeting was easier than the last. They talked about books and philosophy, about their childhoods and their dreams. Theodore was surprisingly well-read, though he admitted he'd spent more time making money than making meaning. I have all these things, he said one afternoon over coffee. Cars, houses, investments. But I don't have a life. Not a real one. So build one, Camille said. It's not too late. Is it ever too late? I don't know. But I hope not. For both our sakes. Meanwhile, Camille threw herself into her dissertation. With the financial pressure gone, with her mother properly cared for, she could focus. The words came easier now. The research felt fresh and exciting again. She worked at the kitchen table while her mother watched television, the sound of Gloria's laughter and the scratch of Camille's pen creating a domestic symphony she'd missed. One evening, about 6 weeks after that first dinner, Theodore called. Are you busy tomorrow? Working on chapter 7. Why? I'd like to take you somewhere, if you're willing. It's a surprise, but a good one. I promise. Camille hesitated. Surprises from Theodore could go either way, but she'd learned to trust him at least a little. Okay, what time? I'll pick you up at 10. The next morning, Theodore arrived in a modest sedan, not the luxury car she'd expected. He wore jeans and a green shirt, looking relaxed and happy. Where are we going? Camille asked as she got in. You'll see. They drove for 30 minutes, leaving the city and heading into the suburbs. Finally, Theodore pulled up to a modern building with large windows and a sign that read Riverdale Community Center. What is this? Camille asked. Come see. Inside, the center was bright and welcoming. Theodore led her down a hallway to a large room filled with computers, desks, and bookshelves. A sign on the door read, Adult Education and Literacy Program. I've been volunteering here, Theodore explained, teaching financial literacy classes, helping adults prepare for their GED. It's been eye-opening. You're teaching? Turns out I'm decent at it. Who knew? He smiled, and there was no arrogance in it, just simple pleasure. But that's not why we're here. I wanted to show you this. He led her to a small office at the back of the room. The nameplate on the door read Camille Johnson, Director of Language Programs. Camille stared at it, uncomprehending. What? The center needs someone to develop and lead language programs. ESL, conversational language classes, cultural integration support. They need someone who understands linguistics and loves teaching. Someone like you. Theodore, I can't. I'm working on my dissertation. The position is part-time, 15 hours a week. You could still finish your degree. And it pays well enough that you'd have financial security. He looked at her earnestly. I know you miss teaching. I know you miss being in the academic world. This isn't the Sorbonne, but it's a start. Camille walked into the small office. It had a desk, a bookshelf, a window overlooking a small garden. It was perfect. I didn't want to presume, Theodore continued, so I told him I knew someone who might be interested. The job is real, the posting is public. You'd have to interview like anyone else. But I thought. You thought I'd want this, Camille finished. Do you? Camille looked at the office, imagining herself here. Teaching again. Helping people learn and grow. Using her education for something meaningful. Yes, she said softly. I do. Theodore's face lit up with genuine joy. Then apply. The interview is next week. I think you'll be wonderful. They spent the rest of the day at the center. Theodore introduced her to the staff, showed her the facilities, explained the programs they offered. Everyone was warm and welcoming. By the end of the day, Camille could envision herself working there. On the drive home, she said, Thank you for this, for everything. Thank you for letting me be part of your life, Theodore replied. These past weeks, getting to know you, watching you come alive again as you work on your dissertation, it's been the best thing that's happened to me in years. There was something in his voice, something tender and hopeful. Camille felt it, recognized it for what it was. He was falling for her. And if she was honest with herself, she was falling for him too. But they didn't say it. Not yet. It was too soon, too complicated. They needed more time, more trust, more proof that this was real and not just gratitude or guilt masquerading as something else. So instead, Camille just smiled and said, I'm glad we met, even if the circumstances were terrible. Me too, Theodore said softly. Me too. Camille got the job. The interview at the Riverdale Community Center went beautifully. The director, a warm woman named Patricia Williams, was impressed by Camille's credentials and her passion for education. 2 days later, Camille received the offer, Director of Language Programs, 15 hours per week, with a salary that would keep her and her mother comfortable. Gloria cried when Camille told her, My baby's teaching again, using that beautiful brain of hers. It's just a community center, Mama. It's a start. It's you being you again. Camille started the position in mid-November. Her first task was to design an ESL program for immigrants and refugees. As she worked, surrounded by textbooks and curriculum guides, she felt herself coming back to life. This was what she was meant to do. Not serve tables, not smile through humiliation, but teach and help and make a difference. Theodore stopped by the center sometimes, always with a good excuse. Dropping off supplies, checking on his financial literacy class, bringing coffee. But really, Camille knew he came to see her. They'd settled into an easy friendship. Coffee twice a week, dinner every Saturday. Long phone conversations where they talked about everything and nothing. Camille had introduced him to Gloria, who'd been surprised to learn this was the man behind the anonymous medical foundation. He was cruel to you, Gloria had said privately. Are you sure about this? No, Camille had admitted, but he's trying to be better. And I think he's succeeding. Theodore was succeeding. His therapy was helping. He'd started reconnecting with his sister, whom he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. He'd begun donating to causes beyond tax benefits, actually caring about where his money went. And he was different with Camille. Genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. The cold, arrogant man from the Sterling Oak was gone, replaced by someone warmer and more real. One Saturday in early December, Theodore took Camille to the Art Institute. They wandered through galleries, discussing paintings and sculptures, debating the meaning of abstract works. In front of a Monet, Theodore said quietly, "I never did this before. Just spent a day enjoying art. I was always too busy, too focused on the next deal." "What changed?" Camille asked. "You did. You showed me there's more to life than work and money." He looked at her, and his gray eyes were soft. "You showed me how to be human again." Camille's breath caught. They were standing close, the bright gallery lights illuminating Theodore's face. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her, but he didn't. Instead, he smiled and said, "Come on, let's get lunch. I'm starving." They ate at a small cafe near the museum, sharing a pizza and laughing about Theodore's terrible Italian pronunciation. It felt natural, you see, like they'd been friends for years instead of months. "My mother likes you," Camille said. "Really? I thought she might hate me." "She did at first, but she says anyone willing to work as hard as you have to change deserves a second chance. Your mother is wise." "She is." Camille took a sip of water. She also said something else. "She said you look at me the way my father used to look at her." Theodore froze, his pizza slice halfway to his mouth. "Oh, yeah, oh." They looked at each other across the table. The air between them felt charged, full of unspoken words. "Camille," Theodore started, then stopped. "I don't want to rush this. Whatever this is, you're important to me and I don't want to mess it up." "I feel the same way," Camille admitted. "But Theodore, I also think we should be honest about what's happening here." "What is happening here?" "I think we're falling for each other. And that terrifies me because of how we met. Because of what you did. Because I don't know if I can trust this." Theodore set down his pizza. "I understand. And I don't blame you for being scared. But Camille, what I feel for you is real. More real than anything I've felt in my entire life. You make me want to be better. You make me want to deserve you. You don't have to earn me, Theodore. I'm not a prize. I know, but I want to be worthy of your time. Your attention. He paused. Your affection if you're willing to give it." Camille's heart raced. This was happening. Really happening. Despite everything, despite the terrible beginning, she was falling in love with Theodore Lancaster. "I'm willing," she said quietly. "But slowly. We take this slowly." "As slow as you need," Theodore promised. They left the cafe holding hands. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental. Camille looked at their intertwined fingers and felt a mix of joy and terror. She was taking a leap of faith, trusting someone who had hurt her, believing in the possibility of change and redemption. "Please let this be real," she thought. "Please don't let me be wrong about it." Christmas approached. Camille was deep in her dissertation work, writing 10 pages a day, her arguments flowing smoothly now that she had the mental space to focus. She was on track to finish by February, defend in March. Gloria's health continued to improve. The medications were working, her energy was back, and Dr. Chen was pleased with her progress. She'd even started attending a diabetes support group, making friends and learning to manage her condition better. Life was good, almost suspiciously good. Camille kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop. But days turned into weeks and nothing bad happened. Theodore invited Camille and Gloria to Christmas dinner at his penthouse. Camille had never seen where he lived. When they arrived, she was shocked by the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the bright lights twinkling like stars. Everything was modern and expensive and impersonal. "It's not very homey," Theodore admitted. "I've never really cared about that before." Gloria looked around with wide eyes. "This is beautiful, Theodore. But honey, where's your Christmas tree?" Theodore looked embarrassed. "I don't have one. I usually ignore Christmas." "Not this year," Gloria declared. "Camille, we're going shopping tomorrow. This place needs life." The next day, the three of them went to a tree lot. They picked out a 7-foot spruce, along with lights and ornaments. Back at the penthouse, they spent the afternoon decorating. Theodore was terrible at it. He tangled the lights, hung ornaments haphazardly, and nearly knocked the tree over twice. But he was laughing, genuinely happy, and Camille found herself falling harder for him with every clumsy attempt. Gloria watched them with knowing eyes. "You two are good together," she said quietly to Camille while Theodore was in the kitchen making hot chocolate. "Mama, we're not even officially together." "Not officially. But baby, I see how he looks at you. And I see how you look at him." Gloria smiled. "Don't fight it. Life's too short." That evening, the three of them sat on Theodore's couch, drinking hot chocolate and watching the tree lights blink. It felt like family, like home. Theodore reached over and took Camille's hand. She squeezed back, and in that moment, everything felt right. On New Year's Eve, Theodore took Camille to a party hosted by one of his business associates. It was formal, held in a hotel ballroom with bright chandeliers and a live band. Camille wore a blue dress she borrowed from Bethany, and Theodore wore a black suit. When midnight approached, they made their way to the balcony, escaping the crowded ballroom. The city spread out below them, lights everywhere, the promise of a new year hanging in the cold air. "Last year at this time, I was miserable," Theodore said. "Angry at the world. Angry at myself. I couldn't have imagined this. Being here with you. Last year at this time, I was at home with my mother, worried about money, feeling hopeless," Camille said. "I couldn't have imagined this either. What a difference a year makes." The countdown began inside. 10:09 a.m. Theodore turned to Camille, his expression serious. "Can I kiss you at midnight? Or is that rushing things?" Camille's heart pounded. "You can kiss me at midnight." 3, 2, 1. The crowd inside erupted in cheers. Fireworks exploded over the city, bright against the dark sky. And Theodore kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Camille was smiling, her cheeks flushed. "Happy New Year," Theodore whispered. "Happy New Year," Camille replied. They stood on that balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the fireworks and feeling like anything was possible. January brought cold weather and hard work. Camille finished her dissertation, all 300 pages of carefully researched analysis. She sent it to her advisor at the Sorbonne, who responded with glowing praise. "This is excellent work, Mademoiselle Johnson. You're ready to defend." The defense was scheduled for March 15th. Camille would fly to Paris for a week, present her work to a committee, and hopefully earn her doctorate. She was terrified and excited in equal measure. Theodore was her biggest supporter. He helped her prepare her presentation, listening to her practice speeches, asking challenging questions to simulate the committee's interrogation. "You're going to be amazing," he told her. "Dr. Johnson has a nice ring to it. Don't jinx it." "I'm not jinxing anything. I believe in you." Those words, simple as they were, meant everything to Camille. After months of being told she was worthless, hearing that someone believed in her was healing. They'd been officially dating for 6 weeks now, and it was good. Really good. Theodore was attentive but not smothering. He respected her boundaries, supported her work, and made her. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Dinner twice a week, Sunday brunch with Gloria, late-night phone calls where they talked until they fell asleep. Camille's friends from the restaurant, Bethany and James, were cautiously supportive. They'd met Theodore at a dinner Camille had organized, and while they'd been suspicious at first, they'd warmed up to him. "He's different than I expected," Bethany had said afterward. "Still kind of awkward, but in a sincere way. He's trying really hard," James had added. "I respect that." Everything was falling into place. Camille's dissertation was done. Her mother was healthy. She had a job she loved, a man she cared about, friends who supported her. For the first time in years, Camille felt like herself. Not the struggling waitress, not the burned-out caregiver, but the woman she'd always wanted to be, educated, purposeful, loved. And it was all thanks to one moment of courage. One moment when she'd stopped being silent and reclaimed her voice. One moment that had changed everything. February flew by in a blur of final preparations. Camille rehearsed her defense presentation dozens of times, refining her arguments, anticipating questions, memorizing key points. Theodore listened patiently every time, offering suggestions and encouragement. "You're going to knock them dead," he said after her final practice run. "Seriously, Camille, this is doctoral level work. You earned this." March arrived with warmer weather and blooming flowers. Camille's flight to Paris was scheduled for March 12th, 3 days before her defense. She'd be gone for a week, and while part of her was excited to return to the city she'd loved, another part dreaded leaving her mother and Theodore. "I'll take care of Gloria," Theodore assured her. "I'll check on her every day, make sure she has everything she needs." "You don't have to do that. I want to. She's important to you, which makes her important to me." The night before her flight, Theodore took Camille to dinner at the same Italian restaurant where they'd had their first real conversation months ago. As they ate, Camille felt nostalgic. "This is where it started," she said, "where we became friends. Best decision I ever made, asking you to give me a chance." Theodore reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm so proud of you, Camille. For finishing your dissertation, for building a new life, for being brave enough to forgive me. I'm proud of you too, for changing. For becoming someone I could actually care about." "Do you? Care about me, I mean?" Camille smiled. "Yes, Theodore. I care about you very much." He squeezed her hand, his eyes warm. "When you get back from Paris, I want to talk about our future. About what this is and where it's going." Camille's heart skipped. "Okay, when I get back." The flight to Paris was long but comfortable. Theodore had insisted on upgrading her ticket to business class, and while Camille had protested, she couldn't deny it was nice to have space to stretch out and sleep. She arrived in Paris on a bright March morning. The city looked exactly as she remembered: beautiful buildings, narrow streets, the same winding through it all. Nostalgia hit her hard as she took a taxi to her hotel. The next 3 days she spent preparing at the Sorbonne. She met with her advisor, Professor Dubois, who greeted her warmly. "Mademoiselle Johnson, you look well. America suits you." "Thank you, Professor. It's good to be back." They reviewed her presentation together, discussing potential committee questions and refining her responses. Professor Dubois was impressed with her work. "This is some of the best research I've seen on post-war linguistic evolution. You should be very proud." On March 15th, Camille woke early, her stomach in knots. Today was the day. After years of work, after everything she'd sacrificed and endured, today she would defend her dissertation and hopefully earn her doctorate. She dressed carefully in a maroon suit she'd bought specifically for this occasion. Professional but not stuffy. She wanted to look like the scholar she was. The defense was at 2 in the afternoon. Camille arrived at the university an hour early, reviewing her notes one last time. Her phone buzzed with messages. From Gloria: "You're going to be wonderful, baby. I love you so much." From Bethany and James: "Knock him dead, Dr. Johnson." From Theodore: "I believe in you. Go show them what you're made of." At 1:50, Camille entered the defense room. 5 professors sat at a long table, their expressions serious but not unkind. Professor Dubois smiled encouragingly from the center seat. "Mademoiselle Johnson, welcome. We're ready when you are." Camille took a deep breath and began. She presented for 30 minutes, explaining her research methodology, her findings, her conclusions about how cultural trauma had reshaped Romance languages in post-war Europe. She spoke clearly and confidently, her French flawless, her arguments solid. When she finished, the questions began. They were challenging, probing, designed to test the depth of her knowledge. But Camille had prepared. She answered each one thoroughly, citing sources, offering examples, defending her positions. An hour later, the committee asked her to step outside while they deliberated. Camille paced the hallway, her heart pounding. Had she done enough? Were her answers sufficient? After 15 agonizing minutes, Professor Dubois opened the door. "Mademoiselle Johnson, please come in." Camille walked back into the room, her legs shaking. Professor Dubois was smiling. "Congratulations, Dr. Johnson. Your defense was excellent. Welcome to the community of scholars." Camille's knees nearly buckled. "I passed?" "You more than passed. Your work is exceptional. We're proud to award you your doctorate." Tears filled Camille's eyes. She'd done it. After everything, she'd actually done it. The professors stood and congratulated her one by one. When they left, Professor Dubois hugged her. "You should celebrate, Dr. Johnson. You've earned it." Camille left the building in a daze. Outside, the sun was bright, the air warm. Paris looked more beautiful than ever. She called her mother first. Gloria answered on the first ring. "Well, I'm Dr. Johnson now, Mama." Gloria's sob was immediate and joyful. "Oh baby, I'm so proud of you. So proud." They talked for 10 minutes, Gloria crying happy tears, Camille laughing and crying too. When they hung up, Camille called Theodore. "How did it go?" he asked immediately. "I did it. I'm officially Dr. Camille Johnson." Theodore let out a whoop so loud that people on the Paris street turned to look at Camille's phone. "That's amazing. I knew you would. I never doubted you for a second." "Thank you for everything," Camille said, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. But I'm glad I got to be part of it." He paused. "Come home soon. I miss you. I miss you too. I'll be home in 3 days." Camille spent the rest of her time in Paris celebrating. She met with old friends from her student days, visited her favorite cafes and bookstores, walked along the Seine at sunset. It felt like coming full circle, returning to the place where she'd first discovered her passion for languages and claiming her achievement. But she was ready to go home. Paris was beautiful, but Chicago was where her life was now, where her mother was, where Theodore was, where her future waited. The flight home felt shorter than the flight there. Camille dozed, dreaming of what came next. She had her doctorate now. She could teach at universities, publish research, build the academic career she'd always wanted. But she also loved her work at the community center. She loved helping immigrants learn English, loved watching adults discover the joy of education. Maybe she could do both. Part-time teaching, part-time community work. Build a life that honored both her credentials and her values. When the plane landed in Chicago, Camille felt a surge of happiness. She was home. Theodore and Gloria were waiting at baggage claim. Gloria was in her wheelchair, a precaution after the long wait, but she looked healthy and vibrant in her green dress. Theodore stood beside her, wearing jeans and a blue shirt, his face lit up with joy. When he saw Camille, he broke into a huge smile. "There's Dr. Johnson." Camille ran to them, hugging her mother first, then Theodore. He held her tight, his arms strong and warm. "Welcome home," he whispered. "It's good to be home." They went to dinner at Gloria's favorite restaurant, a soul food place with bright yellow walls and the best fried chicken in the city. Over sweet tea and cornbread, Camille told them about the defense, about Paris, about seeing her old professors and friends. "I'm so happy for you, baby," Gloria said, her eyes shining. "You got your dream back." "We got our dreams back," Camille corrected. "You're healthy. I have my degree. We have stability. It's more than I ever hoped for." After dinner, Theodore drove Gloria home, then took Camille back to his penthouse. It looked different than it had at Christmas. Warmer. More lived in. There were photos on the walls now, books on the shelves. Theodore was making it a home. They sat on his couch and Theodore took Camille's hand. "I want to talk about us. About our future." "Okay." "I love you," Theodore said simply. "I've loved you for months, probably since that day at the Art Institute, maybe even before. You make me better. You make me want to be better. And I want to build a life with you, if you'll let me." Camille's heart soared. "I love you too. I fought it for a long time, but I can't deny it anymore. You've changed, Theodore. You've become someone I'm proud to love." Theodore cupped her face gently. "Will you be patient with me? I'm still figuring out how to be in a healthy relationship. I'll mess up sometimes. We both will. But we'll figure it out together." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. "Dr. Johnson," Theodore teased. "It suits you. It does, doesn't it?" Camille laughed. "I worked hard for that title. What's next? Teaching? Research? Both maybe. I want to keep working at the community center, but I'd also like to teach part-time at a university. Use my degree to help people who don't usually get access to higher education." "That sounds perfect. Very you." They talked late into the night, making plans, dreaming about the future. Camille told him about wanting to start a scholarship program for first-generation college students. Theodore shared his idea of expanding his volunteer work, maybe starting a foundation that focused on education and opportunity. "We could do it together," Theodore suggested. "Build something meaningful. Use our resources to actually help people." "I'd like that," Camille said. As she left that night, driving home through the bright city streets, Camille felt a profound sense of gratitude. A year ago, she'd been broken and hopeless, serving a cruel man who made her feel worthless. Now, she was Dr. Camille Johnson, in love with a man who transformed himself, with a mother who was healthy and happy, with a future full of possibility. Life had a funny way of working out. Not easily, not smoothly, but eventually, if you held on long enough, things could get better. Sometimes, the darkest moments led to the brightest futures. And sometimes, love and kindness really did win. Spring in Chicago was beautiful. The trees bloomed with pink and white flowers, the parks filled with people enjoying the warm weather. Camille felt like she was seeing the city with new eyes, noticing beauty she'd been too tired or stressed to appreciate before. She'd started teaching 2 classes at a local community college, Introduction to Linguistics and World Literature. The students were mostly adults returning to education, and their enthusiasm reminded her why she'd fallen in love with teaching in the first place. At the community center, her ESL program was thriving. She had 3 classes now, from beginner to advanced, helping immigrants build the language skills they needed to succeed in America. It was rewarding work, seeing her students grow and gain confidence. Theodore had fully embraced his new life. He'd cut back on work, delegating more to his executive team so he could focus on the things that mattered. He volunteered at the community center twice a week, teaching financial literacy and mentoring young entrepreneurs. He'd reconnected with his sister, who lived in Boston, and they talked regularly now. Most importantly, he'd become a fixture in Camille and Gloria's lives. He joined them for Sunday dinners, helped Gloria with doctor's appointments, and treated Camille's mother with genuine affection and respect. "He's a keeper," Gloria told Camille one evening. "Don't let this one get away." "I don't plan to, Mama." In May, Theodore suggested a weekend trip to a small town in Wisconsin, a place known for its beautiful lake and charming downtown. Camille agreed, excited for a getaway. They drove up on Friday evening, checking into a cozy bed and breakfast with white walls and blue shutters. Their room overlooked the lake, the water sparkling in the evening sun. Saturday morning, they rented a boat and spent the day on the water. It was peaceful, just the two of them and the gentle lapping of waves. They talked about everything and nothing, comfortable in each other's presence. "I never did things like this before," Theodore said, trailing his hand in the water. "Just relaxing, being present. It's nice." "It is nice," Camille agreed. "You're learning to live, not just work. You taught me that." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Theodore steered the boat to a quiet cove. He dropped the anchor and turned to Camille, suddenly nervous. "There's something I want to ask you," he said. Camille's heart started racing. "Okay." Theodore reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. When he opened it, a diamond ring glinted in the fading light. It was simple and elegant, exactly Camille's style. "Camille Johnson, Dr. Camille Johnson," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "You changed my life. You showed me how to be human, how to love, how to live with purpose. You make me want to be better every single day. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Camille's eyes. A year ago, she never could have imagined this moment. This man, this love, this future. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Theodore slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the sun set behind them, the world awash in golden light. When they returned to Chicago, everyone was thrilled. Gloria cried happy tears and hugged Theodore, officially welcoming him to the family. Bethany and James threw them an engagement party at the restaurant where Camille used to work. Mrs. Patterson attended, bringing a generous gift and her blessing. Even Professor Du Bois sent congratulations from Paris, along with a beautiful leather-bound journal for Camille to document her new life. The wedding was planned for August, a simple ceremony in a garden with close friends and family. Camille wanted something intimate, meaningful, not the big production Theodore could have afforded. "I just want the people who matter," she told him. "That's all we need." As summer approached, Camille and Theodore worked together on their foundation. The Lancaster Johnson Education Initiative would provide scholarships for first-generation college students, fund literacy programs in underserved communities, and offer mentorship opportunities for young people pursuing higher education. "My name goes second," Theodore insisted. "This is your vision. I'm just lucky enough to help make it happen." "It's our vision," Camille corrected. "We're building this together." In July, Camille published her first academic article, based on her dissertation research. It appeared in a prestigious linguistics journal, garnering attention from scholars around the world. She was invited to present at conferences, to collaborate on research projects, to join academic committees. Her career was finally taking off, and she loved every minute of it. But the best part of her life wasn't professional success or financial stability. It was love. Real, genuine, transformative love. Theodore was her partner in every sense. He supported her work, celebrated her achievements, and stood beside her through challenges. He'd become close with Gloria, treating her like his own mother. He befriended Camille's colleagues and students, showing up to events and genuinely connecting with people. The man who had once been cruel and arrogant had become kind and humble. The transformation was complete, and it was real. August 15th dawned bright and warm. Camille woke in her apartment, surrounded by Bethany and two other friends who'd stayed overnight to help her get ready. Gloria sat in a chair nearby, watching her daughter with tears of joy. Camille's wedding dress was simple ivory silk, elegant but not ostentatious. She wore her hair down, natural curls framing her face. The ring Theodore had given her sparkled on her finger. "You look beautiful, baby," Gloria said. "Just beautiful." The ceremony was in a garden at the community center, the same place where Camille and Theodore had found new purpose. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle facing a small arch covered in flowers. 50 people attended, everyone who mattered to her. As Camille walked down the aisle, holding Gloria's arm, she saw Theodore waiting for her. He wore a navy suit, and his eyes filled with tears when he saw her. Beside him stood his sister, his best man, beaming with happiness. The ceremony was short but meaningful. They'd written their own vows. Theodore went first. "Camille, you saved my life. Not by forgiving me, though that was generous beyond measure, but by showing me what it means to truly live, to love, to have purpose beyond profit. I promise to spend every day earning the gift of your love, to be the man you see in me, to build a life with you that honors what we've both learned about grace and redemption. I love you, Dr. Johnson, today and always." Camille's turn. "Theodore, you taught me that people can change. That growth is possible even when it seems impossible. You showed me that love can bloom in the most unexpected places, that second chances are real, and that hope always has a place. I promise to walk beside you, to support your journey, to build a life that reflects our shared values of kindness, education, and service. I love you, not despite our past, but including it, because it made us who we are." They exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced them married, and Theodore kissed his bride as everyone cheered. The reception was held in the community center's main hall, decorated with bright flowers and white lights. There was dancing and laughter, good food and better company. Gloria danced with Theodore, both of them laughing. Camille danced with James, with Professor Dubois who'd flown in from Paris, with students from her ESL class who'd become like family. As the evening wound down, Camille and Theodore slipped outside to the garden. The fairy lights strung between trees cast a soft glow. They sat on a bench, holding hands, watching the stars. "Happy?" Theodore asked. "So happy," Camille replied. "I never imagined this. Any of this. Me neither. But I'm grateful for every moment, every challenge that led us here." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then Theodore said, "I've been thinking about something. The restaurant where we met is Sterling Oak. Mrs. Patterson is thinking about selling it." "Really? What if we bought it? Transformed it into a training restaurant for the community center's culinary program. Give people hands-on experience, real job skills. Mrs. Patterson could stay on as a consultant." Camille turned to look at him. "That's a wonderful idea. We could call it a second chance. A place where people get new opportunities, where dignity is honored, where everyone is treated with respect, regardless of their position." "I love it," Camille said. "Let's do it." They kissed, sealing the plan and the promise of their future together. 1 year later, the second chance opened to great fanfare. It was a beautiful space, still elegant but warmer now. The staff were all students from the community center's programs, learning culinary skills and customer service. Mrs. Patterson managed the daily operations, and the profits funded more educational programs. On opening night, Camille stood at the entrance in a red dress, greeting guests. Theodore was beside her in a green shirt, shaking hands and thanking people for coming. Gloria sat at a table of honor, healthy and happy, surrounded by friends. As Camille looked around the room, she felt overwhelming gratitude. This place, where she'd once been humiliated, had become a place of hope. Where she'd once felt worthless, she now felt valued. Where cruelty had reigned, kindness now flourished. "Dr. Johnson," a voice said. She turned to see one of her ESL students, a woman from Somalia. "Thank you for everything. You changed my life." Camille hugged her. "You changed your own life. I just helped a little." But that wasn't quite true. She'd helped more than a little. Through her teaching, her foundation, her work at the community center, Camille had touched hundreds of lives. She'd given people opportunities, education, hope. She'd taken her pain and transformed it into purpose. That night, after the last guest left, Camille and Theodore stood alone in the second chance. Theodore wrapped his arms around his wife from behind, and they surveyed the empty restaurant. "We did it," he said. "We built something beautiful." "We did," Camille agreed, "and we're just getting started." 3 years later, the Lancaster Johnson Education Initiative had awarded scholarships to over 200 students. The second chance had trained 300 people in culinary arts, with an 80% job placement rate. Camille had published 2 more academic papers and was working on a book about language and cultural identity. Theodore had stepped down as CEO of his company, choosing to focus full-time on philanthropic work. He was happier than he'd ever been, spending his days making a real difference instead of just making money. And Gloria was there to see it all. Her health remained stable, her medications managed by the best doctors. She volunteered at the community center, mentoring young mothers and sharing her wisdom. She was proud of her daughter, proud of her son-in-law, proud of the life they built together. One spring evening, Camille and Theodore sat on their balcony, overlooking the city. They'd moved into a new apartment, smaller than Theodore's old penthouse but cozier, filled with books and photos and life. "Do you ever think about how we met?" Theodore asked. "Sometimes," Camille admitted, "but not with anger anymore. Just amazement that we got here from there. I was such a terrible person." "You were, but you changed. That's what matters." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know what I've learned through all of this?" "What?" "That love is a choice. Every day we choose to be kind, to grow, to forgive, to build something better. And when two people make that choice together, beautiful things happen." Theodore kissed the top of her head. "I choose you. Every day. Forever. I choose you too." As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Camille felt complete. She'd reclaimed her education, her dignity, her dreams. She'd found love in the most unlikely place with the most unlikely person. She'd turned pain into purpose, suffering into service, humiliation into hope. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, of fear, of wondering if she'd made the right choice in giving Theodore a second chance. But looking at their life now, at all they'd accomplished together, she knew it had been worth it. Because in the end, this was what mattered. Love, kindness, hope, and the courage to believe in redemption. This was the forever kind of love. The kind built on transformation and truth. The kind that honored both people's struggles and celebrated their triumphs. The kind that changed everything. And it all started with one moment. One moment when Camille Johnson stopped being silent and reclaimed her voice. One moment that changed two lives forever.